friends, welcome back. Let us continue with our discussion about motivation. Today I am going to talk about some another approaches to motivate employees. It is something beyond where we can think about employees in a very different manner, that to what extent they can be absorbed in the working environment with lot of motivation or increased motivation and at the same time increased productivity. Today I am going to talk about some alternative work arrangements which leads to increased level of motivation of employees. This is another approach to motivation, and this approach, that is alternative work arrangements, talks about different work arrangements in terms of scheduling their work, such as flexi time, job sharing and telecommuting. These are one of the most practiced approaches in organizations, especially in the current era, in the era of increased IT services or digitalization, that how employees are working or rescheduling their work schedules based on their discretion. So, these are the certain approaches which I have just mentioned on the slide, such as flexi time, job sharing and telecommuting, which are important for a diverse workforce such as dual earner couples, single parents and employees caring for a sick or aging relative. Here diverse workforce, I am not talking about employees who have different race, ethnicity, religion or any other background, but diversity in form of where couples are earning, both the couples are earning, or any employee is a single parent, or their employees who are taking care of their sick or aging relatives. So, let us talk about these alternative work arrangements in detail. The first is flexi time, which is a short form of flexible work time or schedules. This has become extremely popular in organizations, and not in only in Western organizations, but even in Indian organizations. Employees must work a specific number of hours per week, but they are free to vary their work hours within certain limits. Maybe any employee who has to work 40 hours per week at job, maybe he has that kind of freedom to reschedule maybe 3 or 4 or 6 hours per week as per his own discretion. That means flexi time offers some space to an employee to reschedule work on his own. So, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, nearly 26% of working women with children have flexible schedules, and this is not just in US, but in Germany for instance 29% of businesses offer flexi time, and such practices are becoming more widespread in Japan as well. Especially in Japan, why it has been mentioned, because Japan, as per the labor statistics, conform to the highest level of stress at workplaces. They have highest number of mental health cases in their country, and Japanese organizations these days encourage their employees to take off time from their work and spend time for their own. This is the significance of flexi time or flexible work time, where employees can spare some time for themselves and at the same time scheduling their work maybe from work from home or some other time. Now, this kind of approaches offers some flexibility to the working schedules of the employees, where they are devoting time not only to work, but also to some other aspects of work. For example, it can foster work life balance or work family balance. Why? Because generally what happens, maybe an employee is spending maybe 8 to 9 hours a day at work, but if flexi work approach is adopted by the organization, this can allow an employee to devote some time to his family, and that will help to balance his work life balance. So, some of the claimed benefits of flexi time includes reduced absenteeism, increased productivity, reduced overtime expenses and hostility towards management, reduced traffic congestion around work sites, elimination of tardiness and increased autonomy and responsibility for employees, any of which may increase employee job satisfaction. Definitely any organization who imposes strict time schedules on employees to work or devote this much of work hours per week or per day, definitely it will impose lot of pressure on employees. This leads to increased absenteeism or intention to leave the organization. But if some kind of freedom or autonomy is offered to employees, This not only enhances the sense of responsibility to the employees that they have to finish the task well in time with some kind of autonomy, but at the same time it will also reduce some frustration, aggression and anxiety towards work and management. Flexi-time can also help employees balance work and family life, and it is a popular criterion for judging how family friendly a workplace is. This has become a phenomena that any employee would like to join any organization only when there is flexi-time offer or the organization encourages work life or work family balance. It has also become an important aspect of job design element for many employees. For instance, 50% of employees cite flexible arrangements as a very important aspect of their job satisfaction. There are employees who prefer to go for jobs which have flexi-time approaches, whereas at the same time there are people who want to absolutely separate their work and family life in a very clear manner, and they will not take advantage of some kind of approaches that are being practiced by any organization. So, under such circumstances, many employees consider it as a stigma that how people are unable to maintain or achieve work life balance, and ultimately they are more comfortable in separating the life separately, that work and family. So, in countries such as Germany, Belgium, Netherlands and France, employees are not allowed to refuse an employee request for either a part-time or a flexible work schedule by law, as long as the request is reasonable, such as to care for an infant child. So, there can be no conflict of interest between the employee and the employer if the request is genuine for flexi-time schedules and the organization cannot refuse it. So, these are the claimed benefits of flexi-time or flexible work time schedules as a flexible work arrangement. But at the same time, flexi-time has also some drawbacks, such as it does not apply to every job or every worker. For example, any sales boy, any receptionist or any bank teller who has to be at the workstation continuously throughout the day from morning to evening, and under occupations and circumstances it is not possible for such employees to follow or adopt this kind of approaches. But at the same time, some occupations do offer or make more easy for employees to adapt such kind of practices. So, it is not a viable option for receptionists, sales personnel in retail stores or people whose service jobs require them to be at their workstations at predetermined times. It also appears that people with a stronger desire to separate their work and family lives are less prone to take advantage of opportunities for flexi time, and those who ask for it are often stigmatized, which may be avoided if most of the organization's leaders adopt flexible hours to signal that flexi time is acceptable. In that case, leaders have to play a major role in order to encourage such kind of approaches, work arrangement approaches, where people should not, employees basically should not consider flexi time as a stigma that an individual employee is unable to maintain or strike a balance between work and family, but at the same time it is considered as an opportunity to avail so that satisfaction prevails at work. Thus, flexi time is intuitively a worthwhile business practice endured by organizations. So, it is more of availing the approaches practiced by organizations not only for satisfaction, but for increased productivity, efficiency and at the same time work life balance. The next approach is job sharing. Job sharing is an arrangement that allows two or more individuals to split a traditional full time job. That means two people are performing one job while dividing the time. Maybe one employee will perform the same job from morning to evening, and maybe the another employee will perform the same job from evening to maybe midnight. Under such circumstances, this leads to job sharing where there is more balance and there is more satisfaction. For example, one employee might perform the job from 8 am to noon and the other from 1 pm to 5 pm, or the two could work full but alternative days, or maybe. So, this is job sharing not only based on time, but on the days also, that maybe out of 5 days one employee will perform for 3 days, the other for 2, or vice versa. But ultimately the objective is to complete the task, and that is done by 2 people in a week. For example, job sharing was found in a pharmaceutical company in India. Sham, who had an interest in working for an orphanage, did not want a full-time job, but he needed some regular income. And at the same time, Maya is a new mother, could only find full-time care for 2 days a week. Hence, she should only come to work full-time for 2 days. Now, both the employees have different criterias. So, the organization considered their request, and both Sham and Maya were colleagues and had been among the high performers. So, in order to retain the high performers, the company actually worked out a policy for them that Sham could work 3 days and Maya would work in the same territory for 2 days. They kept each other fully informed using a customer relationship management tool that the company used. Now, the point is that even the solution is there for two top employees or top performers. The role of technology is also playing a very important role in making flexible work arrangements. Why? Because even Sham, who is working 3 days a week, and Maya working for 2 days a week, how that work has been coordinated, there comes the role of IT, there comes the role of digitization, that they are maintaining their work, coordinating their work based on customer relationship management tool. So, these are the arrangements again by the organizations that are being offered to employees in terms of work arrangements or scheduling work. So, job sharing allows an organization to draw on the talents of more than one individual for a given job. Definitely, if for example, Maya and Sham, they are top performers, organizations would not like to lose top performers because they have lot of talent and how to retain. So, this is the way. So, it opens the opportunity to acquire skilled workers, for instance, retirees and parents with young children who might not be available full time. So, ultimately, even a retired employee can be an asset to any organization if in case any organization is practicing job sharing. For employees' perspectives, job sharing can increase motivation and satisfaction if they can work when they would not normally be able to do so. So, an employee's decision to use job sharing is often based on policy and financial reasons. Two part-time employees sharing a job can be less expensive in terms of salary and benefits in comparison to a full-time employer. He will be demanding higher salary with more perks and benefits, whereas part-time employees will not demand for high salary or benefits because they know that the organization has already made some flexible arrangements for them and they perceive it as a benefit. But at the same time, this may not be the case because training, coordination and administrative cost can be high. So, it is both the ways. Every approach has its own pros and cons. So, if job sharing is able to retain high performers or talents or skilled workers, but at the same time two people who are performing a similar job, who are sharing job, both of them requires training and coordination, that requires lot of expenses. So, this is another con of or drawback of job sharing, but all depends on the requirement of any employee in any organization. Therefore, employers should consider each employee and job separately, seeking to match the skills, personality and needs of the employee with the task required for the job and taking into account for the individual's motivating factors. So, it is not only about training, coordination or administrative cost, it also talks about selection of people in terms of personality, skills and the need of the skill for the task, that it can balance in every way. The reason it is not a widely adopted practice that there is difficulty in finding compatible partners to share jobs and the historically negative perceptions of individuals and not completely committed to their jobs and employers. How to find? Now, definitely if one job has to be performed, there can never be 10 employees who can perform the same job, maybe 2 or 3 employees will be there. It is difficult to find that compatibility, that who two employees can perform the similar job in 2 different times. So, it becomes very difficult to find compatible partners or co-workers at workplaces, and even if they can find, then the perceptions about the co-worker, maybe it is negative, then how a person will accept that negative perception and then coordinate in performing the job. So, this is one of the major drawback of job sharing. The point is that these are the approaches that are already being practiced by organizations, but To what extent they are feasible, it all depends on the situation, it all depends on the organization, it all depends on what kind of task has to be performed as well as employees. The last is telecommuting. It is about work from home concept. This refers to working from home at least 2 days a week on a computer that is linked to the employer's office. It might be close to the ideal job for many people as it is easy to avoid traffic, there is more flexibility in the working style, there is freedom to dress as you please, and there are less or reduced interruptions. These are the positive aspects of telecommuting. So, it reduces stresses in terms of role, that the person is just focusing on what has been assigned to him, not taking up another roles or jobs, and this leads to reduced turnover in tensions. Employees who work virtually more than 2.5 days a week tend to experience the benefits of reductions in work family conflict more intensely than those who are in the office the majority of their work week. That is a psychological satisfaction that any employee can derive while telecommuting, because he is close to his family and there is lot of work family satisfaction. It has potential benefits to the society, definitely. It is easy to avoid rush hour traffics and it will reduce the commuting time, and carbon emissions would be reduced to a larger extent. It is not only about US culture, it is about Indian culture as well, and this kind of arrangements are already working in Indian organizations. So, it is not only about that there is reduced carbon emissions in US, but definitely in India as well. So, this is the contribution to the society through certain work arrangements, that what you can contribute to the society, reducing traffic, reducing carbon emissions and enhancing work family balance. At the same time, there are some environmental benefits also to the organization, because there is reduced consumption of office energy, there are reduced traffic jams that emit greenhouse gases and reduced need for road repair. So, this is how we are contributing to the society, we are contributing to the external world through telecommuting. The point again to highlight is that any organization who is thinking for employees, so any approach will be so much robust in nature that it will not only benefit any employee, but it will also contribute to the society and to the global world. Telecommuting has several downsides too. For instance, telecommuting may lead to social loafing, because a specific role is being performed by one employee because the person is working from home. So, maybe other roles are being shirked by the employee and are being transferred to the other employees. This leads to social loafing, that is, employees start shirking their responsibility onto other team members, especially when employees have many family responsibilities, but their teammates do not. So, accordingly, what happens that when employees are telecommuting, they are working from home, they will shirk their responsibility onto the other persons, and they will also take some support of work family responsibilities that they have to fulfill, and ultimately it leads to social loafing. Managers work remotely can affect performance of other employees negatively. Maybe they are unable to finish the task because of more leisure time, or they are taking more time to finish the task because there is less pressure of the organizational structure. So, it can hamper or obstruct the performance of the other workers in organizations at the same time. Sometimes employees are demotivated and managers find it very challenging to handle the demotivation of office workers who feel they are unfairly denied the freedom of telecommuters. Maybe some employees are eligible because of their task to work from home, and maybe some employees are not allowed or permitted to work from home, and they find lot of difficulty in finding that managed. So, there is the bridge between the workers tends to expand, and managers find difficulty to bridge that gap based on the task that has been assigned to them. And from the employee's standpoint, this also sometimes leads to isolation with reduced job satisfaction and co-worker relationship quality. This is but obvious that when you are working off the office place, then there is reduced social interaction. This leads to isolation and reduced job satisfaction. So, this is another negative aspect of telecommuting. Further, research has also indicated some drawbacks of telecommuting, that employees who are forced to work from home, they may experience more work family conflict. That is so obvious. No doubt you are close to your family, but the negative aspect is that it leads to more work family conflict because it often increases work hours beyond the contracted work week. Maybe from 8 to 5 you are working at workplace in organizations and you are back to home, but in telecommuting you are working from 8 o'clock and maybe that working hour will extend to maybe 9 in the night. So, this is the drawback, that this leads to work family imbalance. So, again this is the drawback of telecommuting. Telecommuters are also vulnerable to the out of sight and out of mind effect. That means, when employees are working from home, they experience social isolation, but at the same time they also miss meetings which have drastic impact on their praises and promotions, and which can put them at disadvantage when it comes to raises and promotions, because they are perceived as not putting in the requisite face time. So, when you are physically present at workplaces, you are in the limelight, your presence is felt there, but if you are not, although you are working, you tend to miss those meetings and praises and promotions. Therefore, the success of telecommuting always depends on the quality of communications to establish good, though remote working relationships. The next approach is employee involvement and participation. If we have talked about work arrangement practices, the another approach is employee involvement and participation, EIP. It is another approach which is again transformed into a process that uses the input of employees and is intended to increase employee commitment to an organization's success. But what is that process where the input of employees is solicited, is garnered? There is a process that organizations tend to involve employees across the designations and departments, and when their inputs are being respected and they are put at equal footing with that of the management and stakeholders and higher authorities, they are motivated. They are motivated to excel, they are motivated to innovate, they are motivated to perform at higher level. So, if workers are engaged in decisions that increase their autonomy and control over their work lives, they become more motivated. So, it is not only about taking their inputs, but giving them more control and autonomy in order to take their own decisions, which benefits their union or their employees. There is more productivity, innovation and satisfaction. These benefits do not stop with individuals. When teams are given more control over their work, morale and performance also increases. For the successful implementation of EIP, that is employee involvement and participation, should be tailored to local and national norms. Now, here comes the role of culture, which varies from one organization to another organization or from one country to another country. For example, if we talk about US cultures, then EIP programs are readily acceptable over there, whereas in India it is very difficult to execute any employee involvement and participation because of the work culture. Here in India, the work culture is autocratic in certain organizations. So, if any organization is trying to empower some section of workforce, maybe it is not acceptable. So, these reactions are consistent in India's high power distance culture, which accepts and expects differences in authority. Maybe in government organizations there is authority, there is difference in the authority, it becomes difficult to accept that sense of empowerment among employees. But if it is about US culture or any other private organization, the organizations are flat and empowerment can be easily imposed or can be practiced in any organizations. So, this is how cultural and norms play a very important role when we talk about employee involvement and participation, especially in Indian culture, where we have two sections of organizations: public, private and maybe semi-government organizations. So, this is how empowering employees through more flexibility, autonomy and control will vary from culture to culture and from one norm to another. Whereas, in China, when more involvement was increased with the other employees of the organization, there was more sense of job security and higher sense of well-being among employees. So, it all depends from country to country, from culture to culture and from one norm to another, to what extent flexibility, autonomy and decision making is more empowered in which kind of organization. For some examples of involvement programs include, now these are the type of programs where they are being included in the organizational practices in order to motivate employees. The first is participative management. It is a process in which subordinates share a significant degree of decision making power with their immediate supervisors. Now, this sharing can occur either formally through say briefings or surveys, or informally through daily consultations as a way to enhance motivation through trust and commitment. So, it is being considered as a panacea or cure all for poor morale and low productivity. So, when employees are being considered at every level of hierarchy and are being engaged in decision making procedures of organization, then it is participative management which leads to more productivity and increased morale and satisfaction, because maybe authorities can pick every employee from every section of the organization across the hierarchy, and then taking their inputs and keeping it to the equal footing of the management and stakeholders, that leads to enhanced motivation. So, evidence has suggested that participative management reduces the negative effects of job insecurity on satisfaction and turnover intentions. This also includes a technique such as quality circles, such as, now what are quality circles? This is a group of team members or group of members who come together from different sections, departments and units of the organization irrespective of their designation, and they share their ideas, opinions and views regarding any policy making or decision making, and that inclusion creates participative management. So, quality circles have been found to have a moderate effect on job performance. To make this practice, that is participative management, more effective, followers must have to trust and take the leaders in confidence for the change in management style, where leaders should avoid coercive techniques and review progress periodically. Now, here coercive techniques means that leader is not just persuading the followers to adopt a particular practice. In that case, when leaders are more flexible to take the followers' input about any policy to be imposed, that will bring more effectiveness in the policy, because more changes can be offered to that practice. So, this is about building confidence between the leader and the follower and then engaging them, that is the followers, in participative management. So, organizations instituting participative management may lead to a higher stock returns, lower turnover rates and higher labor productivity. The other approach for EIP is representative participation. It is a system in which workers participate in organizational decision making through a small group of representative employees. That means there is a representative group coming from every unit, department and hierarchy, and they are representing their demands, their ideas, opinions to the higher authority, and again their interest has been put to more equal footing with the interest of management and stockholders. So, representative participation redistributes power within organization. Maybe that group is there, but they have handed over some amount of power and discretion and autonomy and responsibility to that group, so that more ideas can be entertained, more ideas can be extracted from that group, and entertaining and taking more interest in their ideas and preferences will motivate them to perform better. Therefore, by including a small group of employees as participants in decision making, definitely when representation is very high, then ultimately motivation level also goes high. For instance, in countries like United Kingdom, Ireland, Australia and New Zealand, representative participation was originally the only EIP program. That means participative management was a secondary thing, but representative participation was more dominating in these countries, which allowed employees to represent and discuss issues outside union agreements, and the representatives were all from the union. So, the most common form of representations are councils and board representatives. So, what are work councils? They are the group of nominated or elected employees who must be consulted with management. So, they are already identified members who form a council in form of group, and management will consult them before imposing or floating any decision that has been taken up by the management. whereas board representatives are employees who sit on the company's board of directors and represent employees' interests. So, there is direct interaction in board of representatives, and whereas in work councils a collective opinion is being shared with the management or vice versa. Therefore, the influence of representative participation on working employees seems to be mixed, but generally an employee would need to feel his or her interests are well represented and make the difference to the organization for motivation to increase. So, we can say clearly that the potential to increase employees' intrinsic motivation holds on to EIP, and the more the employees are given control over key decisions and their interests are representative, it can enhance feelings of procedural justice because there is more fairness, there is more transparency, there is more sharing of information, there is more fairness in distribution of the resources that gives them more platform to feel motivated, secure and ultimately perform high. So, this is about the two alternative approaches to motivation, that is alternative work arrangements and employee involvement and participation. Rest we will discuss in the next session. Thank you so much.